What is going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday. We're coming to you the day before. We're going to be talking a little PGA golf. This is a tournament that I'm not playing as heavily, but I definitely have done my research, and I feel like we're sort of tapped in because we've been doing this a lot, but I feel like Sheets might have a better feel for it. So before we get into all the detailed plays and stuff, last week wasn't great for me. I had a great couple early days and then just faded towards the end of or I guess it was Saturday morning when they finally hit the cut. But it was a rough one for me last week. How was last week for you? And then what are your sort of overall thoughts?
Yeah, I did okay DFS wise, but the real fun was the Abe Answer swept for a couple of days in my first ever golf outright bet. Got to the final pairing, you know what I mean, on Sunday, and then it's kind of hard to win these things.
Yeah.
But that was kind of fun. And with respect to this week, it's a little interesting because first of all, I think from a sweating perspective, it's not going to be as exciting because I remember from last week, you were able to see every freaking shot for the Masters.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure that one of the courses this week, because they have to actually split it up into two courses, I think one of them doesn't even have shot tracker data. So it's going to be it's not going to be quite as exciting, at least until the weekend, with respect to the sweat. I mean, I hope we'll be able to see it, and I hope we'll be able to track it, but it might not be quite as exciting. But I have to see about that.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, I mean, again, yeah, your calls have been pretty much on the money when we've been forced to who's going to win this tournament. So if I were you, I continue betting those ones. And then also
I got two again.
Oh, nice. Okay. Well, I mean, just even going back to the Monday video we did, you nailed the over under. These are these are your things, man. You seem to be pretty good at it. When it's funny because it seems like yeah, I mean, I don't remember you being wrong more than a couple times on these, at least for someone in contention anyway. So, all right, so we'll get into it right off the bat. You want to pull up your screen and we can sort of go by tiers?
Yeah, sure. And just so you know, again, from my process perspective, I mean, I've done a lot, and I told you I'm going to put my own little thing that details the full process and how I've gotten to this point.
Yeah.
And we're going to probably focus just on kind of like the plays, you know what I mean, and whatever. But we could talk course history. We could talk about whatever. And I'm kind of into the analysis of golf in this way. So I don't know. I don't want to stray too much, but I think about this a lot about like which sports are more conducive to, I don't want to say relying, but leaning, I guess, on projections, and which ones are not. We talk about it a lot that basketball is one that projections are pretty important. I mean, they usually fall within the range of outcomes, right? And then all the way at the other end of the spectrum is baseball, where it's really not that big of a deal, with pitchers, and the pitchers, as we talked about, is probably dead wrong anyway. So with baseball, it's just kind of like almost irrelevant. And then you have those middle ground games like football, where it's somewhat important, like more so for some positions than others, even. And golf, where I'm at with golf is really interesting because, so with baseball, it's been the case for years and years that nobody really cares about a pitcher's winning, right? Like what their record is. Mm-hmm. Because there's other more important things, metrics to go by, and even like hitters sort of batting average per se. They've determined that like all these other advanced analytics are just more important, and that's where all the projections come from. That's where people's takes come from. But for whatever reason in golf, although they have these really, really awesome projection models and shots gain, strokes gain data, when I look at content, I hear people talk about stuff like, this guy won this, or this guy top T2'd this, or this guy missed these cuts, or this guy's really feeling it, and for a sport, you know what I mean? I don't know. I'm actually a little, in a strange way, a little more into being able to get a good projection model based on actual analytics than not with golf, especially if so. Let me just go on just a little bit. Like when I look at football, I always say, and basketball. When I say basketball, what I want to get a good, well-projected guy who like nobody's on. Okay, great. It's not going to exist, right? Because that's why they're going to be highly owned. And similarly with football, I want to get like Dalvin Cook, who's going to project really well and no one's going to own him. Okay, thanks. Must be nice, right? But for whatever reason in golf, you can find it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, this is what, my looks at least. I mean, you could find guys that quote unquote project well that just are ignored because of lack of great name recognition, because of recency bias, because of all this stuff. So I'm kind of into it.
It's bizarre because like I'm not a golfer, you are a golfer, but it doesn't make sense to me just from a logic standpoint why people put so much weight into that. You know what I mean? It's sort of like when there's a 35% owned guy in baseball. Every time it happens to and the guy goes off, people always say, yeah, that's why, you know, you got to play the chalk sometimes. And I'm going, in baseball, when there's like a 35% minimum cost second baseman who happens to hit 2 home runs that day for the only time in his career, that's just bizarre, flukiness. But to everybody else, it's like, oh, yeah, you had to have that guy in your lineup. But in reality, you didn't really know about that. With golf, it's funny because people give so much to course history. Sheets, do sometimes people overlook the fact that some guy just may be a better golfer than another guy?
Even more than that. So it's interesting you mentioned that, because that's one of the things that I looked at for this week, is that people are citing history in this particular event for a lot of these guys. But what they don't emphasize is that the last like 3 or 4 times they've run this thing, the fields have been just so soft. The fields have been so weak that you get a guy, for example, I'm not this trash guy, but like Austin Cook, who won this exact event. They're like, ooh, he won this last year. Okay, great, but he was playing against like me. You know what I mean? Like the field is just much stronger. So to rely too much on course history per se, you know, you got to remember, it's all, you know, we talk about football like DVOA. You know, like who is he going against? You know, like if you have 3 straight T3s against club players, I mean, who cares? You know, that's why the shots game data is actually pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, I also believe that course history matters more. I mean, it's more interesting to me, like on a tough course. Like for example, my golf club out here is, you know, it's a very easy, you know, course for like, you know, for country club guys. You know what I mean? Like it's that like that for a reason. And there are guys that come, they're like really good golfers or whatever. They come. They've never played there before. They don't care. They'll eat the place up just because it happens. You know, they're great golfers, like you said. You know what I mean?
Right.
But you know, on the other hand, you know, if you have sent a guy who's never been to like an impossible course before, then okay, I'll give an edge to the person who's familiar with the impossible course. But you know, to say that, you know, I use Austin Cook as an example. Austin Cook, or you'll hear a lot about this week. You hear about all these guys that are from this area, from like Sea Island. Guys that play this course a lot, you know, and practice here a lot. Okay, great. But you know what? If Bryson DeChambeau never set foot on this course, I'll take my chances. You know what I mean? Like, you know, with him against some guy, some 7,200 guy who just plays here every day. You know, because at some level you have to be a really good golfer.
Right. Yeah, I hear you. All right. Well, let's get into it with the by tier and. You know, this one I'm admittedly like a little bit, I haven't done quite the research that I did for the other ones, because I felt a little bit confused, and I also felt really confused at the ownership discrepancies based on even like with the course fit in some cases. So starting at the top, all right, we've got the guy. Let's just start with the 2 guys 10K plus. We can probably say that Webb Simpson will almost have more ownership than any 3 of them, but probably more than any 2 of them together, or close to that. I mean, Russell Henley and Tyrell Hatton will have some ownership. Im will get a little bit of ownership, but nobody's going to play Tommy Fleetwood. Who do you like in this group? And then are you willing to go over the field or be with the field or below the field on Webb? Where do you sort of stand with that?
Yeah. So he rates to be my top guy raw points. He rates to be my top guy value guys. And he you know, rates to be the highest owned by a decent amount. One theme that I'm kind of into this week is I prefer to play guys that are either not coming off a big Masters performance or preferably didn't even play it at all. Okay. It's just a natural thing to have a letdown after playing something like that. And I'm very sensitive to that type of thing. You've seen like my football, my sports betting analysis, how sensitive I am to that kind of thing in general. And, you know, but the guys that there are certain guys that I think more of that. So like Webb, I mean, he played the Masters, but it's almost as if he was invisible like the whole weekend. And like you blinked and then you see the end result and he got 10th. I mean, like that's Webb. You know what I mean? Like it was a terrible course fit for him, and yet still he got 10th. You know, so I'm not too worried about that piece. Where I wouldn't play, and it's a little bit annoying because like Sungjae Im at 11K. Like probably no one's gonna, not say no one, but he's really not going to get owned because they priced him like at 11K, which is just kind of ridiculous. I was kind of hoping he'd be like 8K, and I could go 0 on him anyway. You know what I mean? Like, so I mean, I would never play a guy who's who has done nothing for a while, and then his first Masters pops a second like that. Like that'd be the exact guy that I would fade. So I am, but I am Xing Sanjay out. I am probably going to end up being well over the field on Webb. Actually, that's just where I'm going to be. I might end up 100%. I might end up only 66%, but it's I have just a lot of other guys that I can play at low ownership that I don't need to fade. I don't need to fade this. It's not even that I don't want to fade it. I don't need to. Now you brought up an interesting thing. So again, I've been also pretty in tune with like what the industry's thinking now too about this range this week, and it's pretty clear that the next guy that people are all over, well, two guys. One is Hatton and one is Henley, right? Yeah. So now you mentioned the one guy who's going to who everybody agrees is a horrible play is Tommy Fleetwood, right? No one's going to play.
Give me a little for me.
Well, hold on. Well, I'm just saying that no one's going to play him. I'm not saying it's a bad play. That's my whole point. Right, so the industry consensus is Webb's a lock, and then there's Hatton, and then there's Henley, although there's this price sticker shock, but how can you not? But Henley's a great play, and Im and Fleetwood are terrible, right? That's the industry thing. However, if you are going to, either play Webb or play other high-owned guys, I mean, Tommy Fleetwood at freaking at I don't want to say 0%, but at 5%, he could be 5% at this price. You know what I mean? It's very possible.
But so can you help elaborate maybe a little bit just for me? Because I'm struggling with why. I understand that other players in the price range stand out, and I understand all that, et cetera. But it doesn't seem to make enough sense to where one guy would be. I mean, like his projections are shocking. Like I've never seen a guy this priced. I mean, you could go down. He would be like 95th on the list in terms of cut probability. Like that's bizarre. Even when Fleetwood doesn't rate as a great guy to win, he's almost always high on the cut probability. Is there something wrong with him that I'm missing?
No, he's just always a guy. He's always a guy that just for whatever reason he doesn't project well for whatever reason. Whether his shots game data, whatever that is. But I mean, I'll tell you this: that last week, I mean, I was looking at your Masters exposures or whatever, and I was really jealous. You had all the Fleetwood, and he was really just in there for like a while. You know what I mean? For a while. And he had you had someone like him, and then you had also. If you get a couple of more bumps and bruises, and you get Fleetwood and Willett like rolling again, like that could have won $1 million.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for a GPP type play, I was really looking forward to talking to you about this because I was hoping or whatever that you would turn me on to Fleetwood a little bit because again,
I'm not playing many lineups and I have Fleetwood. I just am not going to buy into that this ownership should be as high a discrepancy as it is. The guy's still an excellent golfer, unless there's something I'm absolutely missing, like there's an injury reported or something.
No, definitely not.
There's nothing that should make him barely above 50% to make the cut for a guy who basically never misses cuts. I just don't understand it. I just think the numbers are off. The projections are off. There's other guys in the range everyone wants to be obsessed with. So, by the way, you can afford to play Webb and Fleetwood together in this tournament. There are plenty of cheap options, which we'll get into.
Yes.
All right.
And the thing is that there are going to be people that try to jam in Webb and Hatton, right? And there are going to be people that try to jam in Webb and Henley. But if you jam in Simpson and Fleetwood, I'm not saying you're going to win, but you're going to be literally, I would say that build is probably a 0.5% owned.
I agree with you.
You know what I mean? I really don't. I don't think that anybody's going to do that because people don't really want to pay for the too high price guys anyway. And if they're going to do that, they're going to go with like the Hatton Henley as opposed to Fleetwood. So that build right there is going to be. And then I don't know where you're at with these other tiers, but then if you like other chalkier lower range plays, you could play them with ultra confidence because you're already fighting with very few people.
Right. Yeah, I hear you there. What are your feelings about this next race? I mean, so that is my current plan, is with Simpson and Fleetwood in my main lineups, or some sort of form of that. Maybe even I'll go Fleetwood and Henley or Fleetwood and Hatton a couple times, but mostly it'll be Fleetwood with one of those guys because I love the ownership. The 9K range is interesting because, again, I find some other guys that I have some draw to that I don't think other people are that interested in. And, I'm not entirely a golf novice anymore, but maybe there's something I'm missing with some of these guys. So who do you like? And then let's talk about some of the lower owned guys in this tier.
Okay, so Fitzpatrick, for me, I mean, he's he projects decently. I mean, he's fine. Getting a little bit, I wouldn't say too much buzz, whatever, about how this is a course for him. It's fine. I mean, I have no problem with him. English, I like a decent amount. But again, from an ownership perspective, he's going to be high owned. So if I do use him, it's going to be with lower owned pieces. I have 0 Jason Day. I was going to have 0 Oosthuizen, just because, he had that run with the Masters. I don't like playing guys like that. But I thought he would end up being a little higher owned. I'm looking at him only like 10%, maybe 12%. So I might use a little of him. I'm not a big Lowry guy. I'm not playing Neiman off of COVID. I'm just not doing it. That could come back to get me, honestly. I mean, because he's good. But Munoz is not for me. We talked about this. He put up ceiling performance at the Masters, and he's going to be 15%. For me, I'm not doing it. I could totally see why people would want to do it, but this is kind of my theme for the week. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I would have interest in Munoz, but I think he's just going to be ultra chalky here. Yep. And if you're going to tell me I know it's coming off COVID, and my feelings about more in other sports than I do in golf, by the way.
Yeah, for sure.
I have a feeling for it, but if you're going to tell me Neiman's going to be half as owned as Sebastian Munoz, I feel like we're missing something there by not playing.
Is that the case? Is he going to be half as owned?
That's the projections that I'm looking at right now. Roughly half as owned, about 12% to 22%.
Yeah, that could be actually.
That seems really pretty reasonable to me too. I also don't think Shane Lowry is the worst play in the world. I always get nervous with Oosthuizen outside of majors or major tournaments because he literally doesn't. I mean, he'll just give up on rounds. He'll give up mid-tournament. He'll give up after his first swing.
Especially off the Masters. You know what I mean? Like
coming off the Masters. Yeah, I'm actually a little bit surprised that he's one of the guys who's playing it. What's weird to me is that I don't ever like Jason Day. I just can't get it. Again, I'm just going to poke the ownership thing because
0% owned. No one is going to play him.
Like, not any person is going to play him. And he's, I don't know. It doesn't really, I don't get the entire argument for why. He actually had a really good Houston Open right before the Masters. I think he came in second or third. And I just don't know that he's like the worst play in the world here. And maybe I'm not giving enough to course fit and all that stuff, but I mean, he had a couple bad holes at the Masters. He really wasn't like god awful. Compared with these other guys around him, just at no ownership, I might just keep him on my list if I do end up multi-entering and getting staggered a few funny ways. But mostly it's going to be Neiman for me in this range.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you that. I mean, this is the one guy who I'm going to probably change my mind on, and I am probably going to end up playing Neiman. I mean, I mean, I know he's coming off a COVID or whatever, but he rates to be a really, really strong play. And like you said, if you could, I mean, I play him a shot before Munoz. And if you told me, and of course nobody can tell me this, if you told me that Joaquin Neiman is healthy, like for example, and he's just going to play his normal game, and he's 12, 15%, and even if he was 15%, I mean, I think this is a good spot for him.
I totally agree, even if it was higher than that. And it's funny because you look at why he'll be low owned too. I think Harris English gets a lot of ownership. I think that you're going to get a lot for Munoz, and I think you're going to get a lot for Corey Connors. So it just leaves Neiman in sort of a no man's land of ownership where I don't like. Usually, I actually thought when I first looked at even the projections and everything, I thought he was going to be like 30% owned. I really thought he was going to be the most popular guy at my first glance. And then when they released the actual projections, I was kind of surprised. But even coming off COVID, I thought people would trust it more. And we have a couple guys who have won off COVID. We have Tyrell Hatton, who at least he came in second, I think, to Webb, but he came back from COVID pretty good. Sheets, and I know we're jumping down a tier now. But in the 8K range, the other guy who stands out is just a pure ownership play for a guy who's, if you want to argue, in good form. I guess that would be something you could argue, and that makes sense to me. I don't know, you don't want to play the guy off the ceiling Masters performance, but what if he's 0% owned? And I'm just talking about Dylan Fratelli. I've always thought this guy is a little bit of an underrated golfer. Has shown up good at big events at different times in the past. As I believe made the cut, and I think, what was it, not 9 out of his last 10, I think it was. I know we're not looking for cut makers at this price, but I mean, he did just he finished fourth at the Masters. I said third, but I meant fourth. Are we just like, is he at all in play? Or I'm just reaching on the ownership thing, because I'm looking at everybody around him: Connors, Munoz, Brian Harmon, Kevin Kisner are going to be super popular. So I feel like Fratelli and possibly even our guy Kokrak might be a little forgotten about.
I will say this: I'll play Fratelli before I play Connors. That's for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm Xing Connors out. He was one of my. I think he might have been my highest owned guy last week, actually.
Yeah, had a lot of him too.
Yeah, he was great, terrific.
Yeah,
it's a different day. It's a different day.
Yeah,
it's a different day, and he's 20%. He's gonna be. He might be 20% again. I don't know.
I think so.
Maybe 15. But so I would definitely play Fratelli up Connors. Again, for me, that's just the theme I'm kind of going with they're not playing the Masters ceiling guys. But if you're going to play one, I mean, certainly play the lower owned guy, for sure. Kokrak, yeah, I like him. He busted a lot of people as chalk last week, so that's usually. It used to be something you can do, right? You play the guy that busted his chalk last week and nobody plays him, but people are a little too smart for that nowadays. But maybe people will say, okay, it's 8,700. I don't feel why should I play at 8,700 if I played him at 7,100 or whatever it was? Yeah, I like him. I'll tell you what I'm not going to do. I'm not playing Kevin Kisner. I'm just hearing too much about how a perfect course fit this is for him and how he did. I'm just not going to do it. I mean, he's fine. At Kevin Kisner, 18%, it's just not for me. So Brian Harmon. So Brian Harmon. This is interesting. So he projects pretty well. He's rates to be like really popular, like 15%. I don't know how much I'm going to play of him in DraftKings, but he's actually going to be one of my bets. He's 40. I think I can get him at 45-1, compared to like much less for other people like kind of around him. I know it's not the same thing, DraftKings, scoring versus win scoring, whatever. But, I don't consider myself an expert either. So I'm just gonna go with that. And so that's actually going to be one of my bets. If I can actually get that 45-1, I got to go to the nitrogen and see what they have. But with respect to on DraftKings, he definitely rates to be one of my top projected guys. But I mean, I don't know if I want to play him at 15, 20%.
I don't mind him even at the ownership. I think he's a pretty set. Like okay. I would think of him as a guy who's fairly safe. The guy just makes cuts and he's got a little bit of upside with him. It seems like the right price range for him. He's, you look at his last tournaments, 26, 26, 28, 13, nothing absolutely out of this world, which kind of, it could argue that's worthy of a fade. He feels like a safe guy, a guy you'd probably want to be using in a cash game build, maybe. I actually think him and Keenan Kisner both kind of fit that category a little bit, but I'm good with sort of looking past that and going to Kokrak. We did mention Fratelli, but Kokrak to me is actually the more interesting realistically. I think that, I understand he's been making putts and all this stuff and whatever, but he's just been too good to be ignored. And he's a guy who can go out there and potentially like win you this tournament. And I just think his ownership's going to be fall below those other guys just because people play the trendy plays because of the fit and this and that. How about playing the guy who's on fire, who's going to be lower owned? I'm all for fading guys because they just had a hot round or something, but when they're consistently on fire and people aren't playing them, sort of a la Brendan Todd most of the year, not this entire end of the year, but most of the year, I would just say I'll ride the hot hand. I'll ride guys who are in their best mode.
I like the guys at the bottom of the range. I like Mackenzie Hughes, and I like Doc Redman.
Yeah, Doc Redman seems like a standout with price for sure, right? Like he seems like one of the more underpriced players on the slate to me. So I like Redman as well. He's going to be really popular. He'll be probably maybe the second most popular player on the slate, maybe third. Justin Rose, I understand you're not a Justin Rose guy. I'm just going to keep pointing out these prices are getting a little bit silly for a guy who's as capable as he is. But I'm going to skip over the other guys. I'm going to skip over Howell, Poulter. I like Mackenzie Hughes fine. But
I wish people would. You know what? Justin Rose projects fine for me. He just always gets played though. I mean, like people always play him.
He didn't get that played last week. I mean, he had some people, but it wasn't like crazy. You know, it was like what was it, like 10%? I don't think it was too bad.
Okay.
All right, you ready to?
But you know what? You might have talked me off of something because I mean, you did make a good point. I mean, like Harmon is. I mean, the reason why he is, you know, going to project. I mean, not project well, but the reason why he's going to be highly owned. I mean, he's you know, a huge favorite to make the cut, I think.
Yeah.
But maybe it's a little ambitious to play him outright to win. So I'm gonna reconsider that. The other one I'm not reconsidering. We'll get to the other one later. But I might so I might roll instead of playing a full like $80 on two guys. Maybe I'll play like $100 on one guy or something. See what happens.
All right. Well, let's
big swing. I'm a big swinger in these bets.
That's funny. By the way, the guy who won didn't have anybody in the Masters. Didn't have anything all that far off the board. I don't think. Even the million.
Oh, is that right?
I think he left money I think it was a left on money on the table situation. A bunch of guys at 10 to 15%. And if you get the right mix, that of course can be good enough to win it. Anyway, just wanted to throw that out there. What are you thinking of? Like when you get down to the 7K ranges. You know, let's start with 7,500 and above. There's a lot of guys who I am indifferent, which means I probably just won't play. And I sadly way prefer the chalk here to everything else, along with the chalk being McCarthy. And I love McCarthy here. I also like Brendan Todd as a pivot, and Doc Redman is the other guy. And you know, we mentioned him up there, but like that, all the ownership in this range is going to go to McCarthy, Redman, and Strepka. All the way down to 7,400. Oh no, 7K. Except for you'll get a lot of Harold Varner also.
Okay, he's 7,400. We'll talk about him.
Yeah, sorry, I went too far. Yeah.
So I have a couple of thoughts about this. First of all, I don't save all this. So I wanted to go back like 5 weeks ago or something like that, and run projections for a tournament that was kind of like this, where sort of a weak field, not really, and you know, you needed to hit fairways and things like that, and you didn't really need to be a big long hitter, and just to see where the projection would actually come up, and you know, a guy who we brought up in this range, who you played before, you know, if this tournament were like 6 weeks ago, wouldn't Brandon Todd be like huge chalk here?
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
I mean, I think he's a good play, but so here are my thoughts on this range. So I'm not playing CT Pan off the ceiling performance. Talked about that. I'm not playing Lee Westwood. I wasn't even thinking about playing Danny McCarthy. It's so funny. Actually, you know what? I mean, he's in like the top like kind of quartile of guys I like, but because of his ownership, I wasn't going to play him. Mm-hmm. I originally was like kind of really into Alex Noren. Maybe I'll play a little bit of him. Straka seems a little bit too every. Austin Cook we talked about. He just has way too much course history and narrative for me to like. Because I just think that his ownership is going to be just kind of overstated there. Mm-hmm. So the two guys that I like from this range, who are both projecting okay and not going to be as highly owned as the other guys, is number one is actually Taylor Gooch at 7,900, and the other one is all the way down at the and Ches Reavie, actually. So for me, those are the two guys out of this range that I'm going to probably play. Denny McCarthy says going to be chalky. Straka is going to be chalky. For me, again, it's going to be just Taylor Gooch and who did I say? Ches Reavie.
Yeah, I get it. I didn't go to Reavie myself yet, but I definitely understand the argument for it. I usually am an Alex Noren. I'll take some shots there, but I'm not as high on him this week, and I don't really have a great reason for it. I guess it's just sort of how my builds went. I guess I liked other plays in the range a little bit better, and I don't mind taking a shot back on Cook because I don't think his ownership is going to be quite as heavy as we might think. Just because Straka, McCarthy, Varner, there's other guys who are going to get a lot of ownership in this range, so maybe it'll keep it down a little bit. I'm starting to get back into the Brendan Todd. I think that you know, even after hearing it just said out loud, like you're right. He would have been. He actually has pretty reasonable odds. And I agree with you about Taylor Gooch too. So those two along with McCarthy would be my favorite
Okay, so there's actually a bunch of guys. You can get after this first from 74 to 7K. Why don't you just read off who? I mean, there's a gazillion of them. So, but read off who your favorites are.
So Varner is going to be really popular, and I think it makes sense. If you're playing a cash game, you probably would look at him. I just don't know that I want to eat all that chalk. But again, if I'm going to play Fleetwood and other things like that, I can do that if I want to. So he would be the guy who sort of rates out the best. I don't mind taking a shot on Aaron Wise here. JT Poston is another one at 7-3. Cam Davis and Cameron Tringali. These are all guys on my list. But the guy who I was really going to play, unfortunately now is out with COVID, is Norlander at 7,100. He was my favorite of the guys in this range. And then I'm trying to find my other play is a weird one. And it's just sort of betting on the young, talented kid sort of a thing that I don't even want to say he's too cheap, but, you know, he's missed a lot of cuts barely this year and has been competitive a couple other times. And I think he's actually a better golfer than what he's shown and will be unowned, and that's Will Gordon. That's
all right. So now again, I'm just looking at these win odds, and I have to make sure these are all right, but I'm probably not playing him as chalk in DFS, but I'm playing Varner 80-1.
That's crazy.
Me playing him or
no, that's great. That's higher. That's more than I thought it would be. I would have thought
that's what I figured. You know, yeah. I'm just actually looking at Vegas Insider odds. I didn't know the actual odds I could bet on, so I gotta see. That was my first kind of look. Is that's a little bit ridiculous. So I would try that. The other guy, by the way, who I was going to play a lot of, who also was out, is earlier at a higher range was Sam Burns. I really liked him.
Yeah,
and he did that. So it's so funny. Like when you go through my my initial takes, if you ever, you know, people go through my video where I go through who I like at the beginning, whatever. There's a guy in this range who I thought when I first looked, I'm like, all right, well, this guy is probably easiest best play, and I'm not going to play him because he's obviously going to be the highest owned guy on the slate. And then as ownership came out, whatever it is, it didn't seem that way. And then as recently as yesterday, I was going to literally go 100% on this one guy.
Streelman?
What's that?
Streelman?
Streelman is Streelman. He's it's interesting you say that. He's actually my favorite. He's probably my favorite low-owned guy on the whole board. But that's not who I was actually getting at. I said two of them. I was really thinking of going 100%, and this is totally off-brand, so that'll give you another clue. I was thinking of going 100% Matt Kuchar.
Wow, that really is off-brand for you.
Yeah, I mean, ridiculously off-brand. At 70, I just really thought that in this type of kind of mid-tier field, getting him at 7,400, he would end up being enormous chalk. And then I'm like, oh, I just hope that I'm wrong. I hope I'm right because I really don't want to play him. And then like projections came out. I'm like, boy, he rate's not bad. And then I'm like, yeah, but he's going to be like huge chalk. And then I'm looking, he's like going to be if he's under 10%. I mean, how does he not make the freaking cut? I mean, like it's freaking. And we talked about this. I hate playing guys like this, but I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to have 100%, but
no, I think it's interesting. I like that call actually.
I really like him. And then the other guy that you totally hit on. There are two guys who I really, really like as low-owned 7K guys. Actually, to go all the way down. So from the bottom up, I like Matt Neesmith at 7K. Mm-hmm. I like Kevin Streelman, who you mentioned, 7,100, and another guy who just ridiculously low-owned, who was just rates to be a decent play for me is Tringali.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can play a lot of guys.
A lot of these guys down here that are definitely in play. Yeah, I agree.
I didn't even realize. So Norlander is out, huh?
Yeah, he just got.
Yeah, there it is.
I was planning on talking about him today, but now I'm not gonna be able to.
I thought, oh man, and this guy really pisses me off, Stenson.
Oh my God, yeah, it's just I don't know. I mean, I feel like he's gonna end up not playing in this tournament. I'm actually surprised he's playing in it too. All right, you want to move down to the 7K and below?
Yep.
Or 6,900 and below, I should say. For me, it's pretty simple.
I got a couple of things from down here, actually.
Me too. Well, 69 and 65, let's do first. I don't know if we're going to have much below that, but At 69, the first guys who stand out to me, I don't mind taking a shot with James Hahn. Adam Schenk, I actually think is a really solid play, and I think it actually of the bottom tier guys, I probably feel a little bit better about him than most of the other ones. I like Doug Gim. I'm trying to look at who else I have on my list here. Doug Gim, David Hearn, just literally because I read other people's write up on him. Johnny Vegas seems really cheap, but we know how that can go a bunch of different ways. Those were the first guys who sort of stood out a little bit in the above 6,500 range for me. And Kyle Stanley at 6,500.
Okay, so I'm gonna recommend another content provider here, just because I feel like it. So one of my favorite guys to follow is, I don't know if you know who Rick Rungood from. His name is Rick Lehman. He's just the freaking stone nuts. He's, first of all, he's a nice guy, really honest, and he does articles for Golf Digest too. I mean, I actually, when I first started DFS and I thought about playing golf, I actually subscribed, but then I really didn't understand what the hell he was talking about. I just didn't even want to play golf, so I just canceled my paid subscription, and now I just kind of leech off the free stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And he's awesome, and he's turned me on to these two different guys in this range. Like last couple of weeks, the stats just kind of always panned out, but they just haven't really worked out. And one of them is a guy you just mentioned, was James Hahn. And he's going to be low owned. I'm gonna take a shot at him. And then you go down a little bit. Hubbard, I would play him. You mentioned Gim. I didn't get there, but I could see that. And the other guy from same dude, Han and John Huh. They both profile pretty well, and
I forgot him too. Yeah, sorry.
They're both gonna be really low owned, and I am shout out, and I'm going to be playing both of them.
Yeah, I'm into that actually. Did you have much on the bottom of the 6K range? Am I crazy for taking a shot on these last add-ons that people don't have anything going for? I'm not saying that I absolutely love Sam Ryder here, but I don't mind somebody who was late ad. I just was sort of open to the idea of taking a shot on one of these guys. Is there anybody down near the bottom that you really find?
Before I do that, I did gloss over one of my top just value rated guys who's going to be low owned is Tom Hoge.
Oh yeah, okay.
So he's 6,700. I did not. It's funny, when I first did my first Monday kind of look, I always scroll from the bottom up and I see, is there any of this stuff I want to play? This is before these late ads came in. And the one guy I just keep coming back to is the guy you brought up a couple of times. I think you did really well with him a few times, is Chase Seifert at 6,200. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he's done anything in the last couple of months, but I know he's capable. So
yeah.
Now you mentioned who Sam Ryder, he was an ad. So if you really want to, if you want to go min cost guys, him and then two other guys is Camilo Villegas,
yep.
and another late ad is the with Teeter, maybe Josh Teeter. Mm-hmm. So if you want to do that, those are the guys that I would play if you're going to play down there. I don't think I have no problem with it. You know what I mean? I think that the only thing is I don't know exactly what you gain from doing it. You know what I mean? I mean
you could play the two of the top guys if you wanted to. Let's just say that would be one route. Right. A little bit easier, a little bit more comfortably, along with a mid-tier guy in the bottom range. So that would be one of it. The lack of ownership is another thing that's kind of appealing. You take a guy like Seifert's going to be completely unowned, and we've seen him in the same type of unowned situations where we were fortunate enough to have a couple pieces where he came in and had a top 5 for us. You know what I mean? If he comes in the top 20, you're looking great at 6,200. So I think that's your argument is sort of.
Well, it does do something for you. I asked, what does it do for you? It does a lot for you. So let's just say you put in, say, I don't know. Where's your Sam Ryder? Not your Sam. Let's say you put Ryder and then in here. I mean, you could play not only Fleetwood and Simpson, but you could add another good 8,700 guy.
Yeah. Right?
And then still, and we talked about the 7K range. I mean, you could roll the dice and pick any of these guys and all have good. You play Streelman, for example. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to answer my hypothetical, that's what doing Seifert and Ryder will do for you. Is it allow you to pay up for two full pay ups and a pretty decent, 87, 8,800 guy and then not even be left with complete trash, remaining. So that is what it'll do for you.
Yeah, and if you, I mean, look, you could take the same lineup and chalk it up a little bit by playing instead of Kokrak playing Harmon, and instead of Streelman playing Varner, and all of a sudden you still are off the board, but you've got some chalk in your lineup. It's kind of a cool build.
Yeah,
it's a lot of mixes you can go with that kind of thing. So I like that.
And it's just so you guys know, it's an $8 this week. So you guys can spend a little more if you guys felt like it on the lottery.
Well, why don't you give us?
It's only $100K for first, but still, I mean.
Who are you going to give us as the winner this week? That's what I wanted to know. Is who's? Well, I guess we'll do the long shot guys. We may as well go through it real quick. So under 8K to make the top 20. Who stands out the most for you?
Well, I may as well pick the guy I'm going to play to win, right? So Varner.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I guess that's good. Only if I want it for DFS, I get it. I will say most likely. I'm just going to say Denny McCarthy. Even though it's a little bit shocking, but McCarthy, Gooch, Todd, Redmond. Those are all good guys to me.
And I guess I'm going to be. I might as well do the same thing. So like in the 8K range. So I guess the top. What do you need? Top 5 or top 10?
Top 10.
I'll go Harmon, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. I'll just because you picked him, I'll go with somebody different. I will go with. I'm going to go with Kokrak here. He's had enough of them lately for me to take that shot. And I want to say Dylan Fratelli and hope it happens again, but I think the real bet is a better bet for Kokrak.
Okay, now here's a question for you. Someone besides Webb Simpson to win the tournament.
Someone besides Webb Simpson to win the tournament? If I had to bet on maybe not a longer shot guy, but a guy who might have decent odds, I'm not sure what they are, but I'd be interested to see what Harris English's odds are. And
you can give me 2 if you want. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna try.
If they're under 10K, you can give me 2.
Okay, I'm gonna go with him and boy.
Well, I'm gonna steal yours if you don't take them, so you better come up with it.
Who am I missing all of a sudden? I feel like I forgot somebody in the middle of all this.
Better come up with it. Otherwise, I'm gonna grab it.
Okay, I'll just take Neiman.
Thank you. That's what I was taking. So I was gonna go exactly the 2 guys you mentioned. So English and Neiman would be gonna be my 2 guys.
I like that. And then if there was the biggest fail, I guess we getting Fleetwood's the obvious prediction because everybody's got him failing, but who's failing the most at the top tier? Who misses the cut from maybe 9K and above, or who's the guy?
And here's the problem. The problem is I think the easiest one to bust his salary is him, but I think he's too steady to miss the cut. That's the problem.
Yeah. I actually think if M gets like a little bit lower and lower owned, I might go back.
No, dude, I know who misses the cut. I mean, this is an easy one, and you kind of alluded to this before. Is going to be Oosthuizen.
Oh yeah, I mean that is an easy one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a little bit of okay. So here's some advice. I don't want to get this wrong. So if you guys play Showdown. Okay, now I don't have it in me, right? But if you play Showdown, this is probably going to be a popular thing of the experts play Showdown. Remember, there are 2 courses that are running, and I think the Plantation course is the easier of the 2. So if you are going to play Showdown, you're going to want to stack the guys that are playing the Plantation course. That's a take I heard, which makes a lot of sense. And I've only heard it from one place, so it's not like everybody's doing it. So that's one little bit of advice that if you do, find out who's playing on the Plantation course day 1, right? Or day whatever day they're, whatever is and play those guys because it is the easier course.
I like it. All right, Sheets, anything else for the people before we get out of here? I feel like it was pretty good coverage there for a tournament that I wasn't paying that much attention to, but you got a lot of good information there. All right, well, we will be back with you guys. We'll be doing football in I think we'll be doing it tomorrow. And good luck to everyone out there. We'll see you at the top of the leaderboards.